What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction, and in this one we have why we left Australia and may never go back. God dang, never? Before we dive in, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe, get a video a thumbs up. Let's find out what was the reason.
So about 3 years ago now, my wife Mandy and I left Australia on a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. Okay. We had just started working online, and our plan was to make our online jobs full-time before we ran out of money.
Love that.
And we did it. And we've made plenty of videos on how we made money online and given our full story, but something we haven't really elaborated on was...
Hold on, I need to be checking out their blog and how they made money online, because that's what I need to be figuring out.
Why we left Australia in the first place. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the real reason why we left Australia and why we may never go back.
I'm going to think it's price reasons. Cost of living. That's what I'm going with.
All right, we might as well get straight to it. It's no secret that Australia is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. It's actually been ranked in the top 10 most expensive places to live in the world for like 10 years now. And although Australia does have some of the highest wages in the world, it still doesn't match up with the increasing price of houses in Australia. In fact, it's almost impossible for young people to buy a home in Australia in 2024, let alone rent a place. And that's especially if you're living in a major city like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Perth, Adelaide, etc. As you can see by this graph here, the median cost of homes in Australia has...
Jesus. That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. And trust, I can feel it here in the U.S. as well. Like, it just feels like, as a young person, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of young people who do buy houses and can afford it. But it's just more difficult now than especially it was a decade ago to be able to put yourself in a position to buy a house. Because like this graph, wages absolutely left behind by housing prices. God.
Has skyrocketed over the last 20 years. And when you compare that to the average wage increase, well, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that something just doesn't add up here. So speaking from our first-hand experience, when we left Australia at the end of 2021, we were living in this beachside town called Byron Bay. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's this quiet surf town. Well, actually, I wouldn't say quiet. It's a surf town on the east coast of Australia that has like a hippie vibe to it and has recently just become like probably the most popular tourist destination in all of Australia. And a lot of people have moved there from big cities. So Mandy, Bear and me were all living in a studio apartment. In fact, it wasn't actually really a studio. It was just some guy's garage that he put a kitchen and a bathroom in and turned it into a studio. So this thing was probably around 50 square meters tops. It was like a loft. It had a set of stairs and it was all open plan. We shared a driveway and a yard with 4 other people, 2 other couples. And look, to be honest, we loved living there. The other people that lived there were amazing and we got to live in one of the coolest places in Australia. But we were paying $2,000 a month just to live there. If you compare that to where...
$2,000 a month? For that space is mind-blowing. So Byron Bay might be the equivalent, I guess, of like a New York or a big, like a Los Angeles and San Francisco, big city here in the U.S. where you got to pay $2,000 a month to live in a shoebox. Bro, what I could live in $2,000 a month in the area that I'm in, it'd be a nice house. It'd be a nice house. If I was renting, that you could rent for $2,000 a month. Oh my God, it'd be incredible. I'm telling you, it'd be absolutely incredible. That's crazy. Yeah, I would, but I personally would never like go live in like a big like tourist destination or a big city where things are that expensive.
We're living here in Thailand. We pay just over half of that per month. We have a 3-bedroom house with our own carport, a rooftop terrace, and a swimming pool, and a backyard. We also have a gardener that comes twice a week and pool maintenance as well. And we're walking distance to pretty much everything here. We don't even need a car. And so you can see how expensive.
You have all of that for just a little bit over $1,000 a month. Pool, maintenance, gardener, house, 3 bedrooms, carport.
It can be to live in Australia,
crazy.
and that was just for a rental. We honestly were thinking about buying a house when both of us were working full time back in Australia. We looked into it. We soon realised that prices of homes in the area that we wanted to live were starting at like $1.5 million. $1.5 million. I remember growing up in the 90s and calling rich people millionaires. Do you guys remember that? Rich people used to be called millionaires. Now in 2024, you literally have to be a millionaire just to buy a home. So to put that into perspective, if Mandy and I wanted to buy a home for $1.5 million, we would have to save up $300,000 just for a deposit. $300,000 for a deposit. And if we did get the loan, the repayments would be about $7,500 per month. So when you take into account that the average monthly wage in Australia is around $6,600 before tax, I guess if you doubled that, that would be around $13,000 for a couple for the household income before tax. Now, if you take away taxes, you take away other expenses like groceries, transport, healthcare, you're not left with a lot after a $7,500 mortgage. In fact, I'd probably argue you'd barely be able to cover your mortgage. And then, of course, what if you want to start having a family? You want to have some kids. You know, I would like my wife to be able to take some time off to look after the kids. So now you're looking at a single income with a $7,500 mortgage. That doesn't work. And when I say $1.5 million, I'm being generous because $1.5 million in Byron Bay will get you a 2-bedroom apartment, maybe a small townhouse at best. And if you're thinking that's just Byron Bay, like it's just that particular area, it's not. Sydney was just named the 2nd most expensive place to live in the world. Okay, we just need to take a quick break to thank Level 8 for sponsoring today's video.
I'm going to skip the sponsor, but yeah, we all know Sydney is absolutely no joke. Is this all the sponsor? I believe. Let's check.
Materials that are also water.
Yes. Okay, so sponsorship's going to end about right here.
10% off your purchase. But it isn't just housing that's expensive these days in Australia. The cost of groceries has absolutely skyrocketed over the last few years. On average, grocery prices have increased up to 15% per year over the last decade, while grocery stores are making record profits. In fact, they're making bigger margins than ever before. When we were living back in Australia, if I wanted to take Mandy out for a nice dinner at the pub, nowhere fancy, just a regular Tuesday night dinner, I'd want to hope I'd bring more than $100 with me. Otherwise, one of us would not be eating that night.
More than $100?
And in case you're thinking, this is just enough.
No. He said nowhere fancy. More than... I'll make you a nice dinner at the crib. I'll make you a good dinner. We can't go out. We can't.
The lazy millennial that doesn't want to work and wants everything handed to them. That couldn't be further from the truth. I've worked some of the hardest jobs in the world, I believe. I've worked in underground mines, oil and gas rigs, working 14-hour shifts for 14 days straight, getting 5 days off. I've worked in construction. I've worked in landscape maintenance. I've done pretty much every hard job there is to do, working 60, 70, 80 hours per week. In my opinion, as young Australians, all we really want is the ability to be able to put a roof over our head that we can call our own. That we don't have fear of being booted out from at any time. Where we can paint the walls, we can have pets. We're not burdened by a 12-month year-to-year lease. And yeah, maybe it would be nice to be able to take the family out for dinner every now and then, go on a holiday once or twice a year without having to worry about going bankrupt. Now, obviously, the whole world is going through an inflation right now, which may seem like this is an unsolvable problem. And to be completely honest, I am a capitalist. I'm a pure capitalist. I believe capitalism works and it rewards those who work the hardest. And I also understand that if you're someone who has purchased a house in Australia over the last decade or so, you're probably not too upset about the increased housing prices. In fact, the property value skyrocketing has actually made you a lot richer, and I understand that point of view. But did you know that only 1% of Australian property investors own almost a quarter of Australian properties?
That's ridiculous.
Look, I'm no genius, but when you read reports that private property developers and big banks, which are giving out loans for increasingly high prices, are turning over record profits year in, year out, while everyday Australians can't afford to buy a home. It kind of seems like something's a bit broken, doesn't it? So what's the answer? How could this problem possibly be solved? I mean, as I said, I'm no genius, but it seems to me like a simple mathematical equation of supply and demand. So why doesn't Australia just build more homes? Wouldn't that make perfect sense for everybody?
But then it's going to take money out of the pockets of those who are making record profits, and the last thing they want is money out of their pockets. Sadly.
Well, I did some digging around, and the answer to that's actually kind of depressing. So we had the same problem in Australia about 50 years ago, back in the 70s, and home ownership was at around 30%. So the Australian government decided to start building homes for Australians. The government would then sell the home to Australians for a reasonable price. I mean, the government still made a profit, obviously, but the homes were sold at a very reasonable price, and lo and behold, in under a decade, home ownership went up to about 75%. So, is that still happening? Well, the answer is no. Since 2011, the amount of homes being built by the Australian government went from 20,000 to today, zero. Not one. Zero houses.
Crazy.
And if you're wondering why that is, and you're wondering, hang on, that doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't make sense, but I'm going to get to that. And this might be a controversial take, but this is just my opinion. If you don't agree, let me know down below in the comments, because I'm definitely open to other opinions. So in doing some research, I found out that property developers, on average, are the biggest donators to Australian government parties every single year. And that's both political parties. So in other words, to break it down in layman's terms, property developers are donating record amounts of money to the Australian government. Australian banks are turning over huge profits year in, year out. Property developers are turning over huge profits year in, year out. And politicians are receiving large donations from these property developers every single year. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention that both state and federal politicians on average own between 4 and 5 investment properties each. So anyways, that's just the facts.
Crazy.
I'll let you guys join the dots and let me know who you think is profiting the most out of the cost of living crisis in Australia, and who would benefit the least from improving that cost of living crisis in Australia. And I think I'll just leave it at that. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you found this video helpful at all, please like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Cheers.
It absolutely sucks, because I live in a country where I see people put profit over people every single day. And it's absolutely horrific thing to do. But people just want to continue to get richer, want to continue to line their pockets, no matter the struggle of the people at the bottom. And that's what happens. Politicians are corrupt. The rich, the elite are corrupt. The system is just corrupt. And that's why so many people are left without homes, and so many people are left struggling, and they could care less because their pockets are lined, which is absolutely sad. And I can't stand that. I absolutely can't stand that. But let me know what you guys think about that video. What he said makes sense. I've seen that in a couple other videos of why people have left Australia at this point. The cost of living is just gotten too much when they can go to another country and pay half, if not less than 3 times what they were paying, and so in Australia. So it only makes sense to move. But that is all we have. If you guys enjoyed that, don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the next one. See you guys next time.